All right, the Krug Show meets the Cohn Zone. We haven't met up for a couple weeks. We got a lot to get into. Let's go. Off and running. Hope everybody's having a great day. Happy May the 19th, 4 o'clock. Up, absolute on the dot, 4 o'clock. West Coast, 7 o'clock back east. Welcome to the Krug Show meets the Cohn Zone. Hope you guys are having a great day. I'm Larry Krueger. That is Grant Cohn. On my side, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket. Tell them the Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner, Sports Cards and Collectibles. 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Anthony Catania, the owner there, at 831-521-5264. And we're brought to you by Mancini's, as you see over Grant's head there. Mancini's Sleep World's got their huge Memorial Day sale, and it goes on through June the 9th. All you got to do is use the code KRUG10 at checkout at any Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com, and you'll get an additional 10% off. Krug Show, or Krug10, I should say. KRUEG 10 at checkout, and you'll get 10% off at any Mancini's locations. Thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And if Grant, of course, on your end, you got some sponsors you want to shout out, and we'll shout out Prize Picks in a bit.
Yeah, Prize Picks is sponsoring my channel this year for 12 months. Shout out to Prize Picks for believing in me. And yeah, we'll make some picks midway through the show. And I just want to say, did you guys witness how efficient, how professional Larry's ad reads were just there? Like, I'm just getting into this. I'm new. Larry's been doing this, and I'm like, damn, that was 3. Bah, 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 bah. Like, Larry's a pro. Gotta say, wow.
Gotta hit it quick.
Voice modulation. It was nice, man.
Thank you. I've been practicing. I practice in front of a mirror 3 times a day. We haven't streamed since the draft. So we did stream after the draft, but then we skipped a week, and then a lot came down, including Purdy's deal today, Fred Warner's deal coming down. I watched one of your. I watched just the stream that you did reacting with Ashley and the third guy I didn't recognize. But so I kind of know sort of where you're coming from, but why don't we go into it? Because I kind of look at this deal as win-win. I think, or maybe win-win-win. The fans win in that the whole thing's kind of settled. Brock wins because he's getting nearly $200 million guaranteed and, kind of his teeth into the starting job for the next 5-6 years. And then I think the Niners kind of win because they have a franchise quarterback under contract in 2025 who's 25 at, $45 million a year on average for the next 6, with only 14% cap hit in year 1, which is pretty low, 18% in the first 3 years. It seemed favorable from what I can see. And of course, today it all came out. The full no trade is in there as well. I'm sure there's language in there for some kind of third year out that I'm not fully understanding yet. But Grant, give me your rundown on this on the Purdy deal, because it sounds like you're not a fan.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing because Niner fans are excited. People that cover the team seem to see the 49ers thinking here in their logic. But like, if you were to take the pulse of other teams and other fan bases, like, hey, Seahawks fans, how do you feel about the Niners giving Brock Purdy all this money? With Fred Warner, it's like, oh man, we got 3 more years of this guy. Like, it's a Hall of Fame linebacker. He's so good. This sucks. But with Purdy, I get the feeling that a lot of teams are like, oh wow, I'm glad you paid him that much. Now I think your Super Bowl window has closed, and I don't think you're going to be able to put together a dominant team around him making that much money. Good. Maybe they're wrong, but I feel like that's one way to gauge it. Are teams around the league happy or sad that you did what you did? I think teams are probably happy at this point. So there's that. And then the other thing is, like, forget the money, whether $53 million a year is too much or too little. It's not my money. It's just a commitment. It's 3 years minimum, most likely 5, with no trade clause. Like, you can't even, like, if he gets hurt for a month and Mac Jones or Curtis Rourke plays, and it's like, man, they're just as good for a fraction of the price. you can't trade Brock Purdy. You got to stick with him. And I feel like Kyle for so long has been able to get so much production without having to spend much at the quarterback position. Trey Lance notwithstanding. So it just seems like a big commitment to a guy who frankly had a down year last year. If he had a huge year last year, I might understand it. But 20 touchdowns, 6 wins, 5 years, whew, it could work. It could work. I'm so open-minded, Larry. You know me.
Well, I mean, to me, it comes down to like one like basic but clear question. Was last year's version of Brock Purdy concerning or not? If last year's version of Brock Purdy is concerning, then this is not a good deal. If last year's Brock Purdy performance was not concerning, and that was more about, what's going on around Brock with CMC, Ayuk, Debo, the line, the defense, whatever, then we shouldn't be concerned, because then you got him at, 53 for 5 or 45 for 6. You got him at reasonable money for franchise quarterback. But if you're concerned that what he showed last year means that he's not a franchise quarterback, then there really was an extension amount that would have been that would have sufficed, right? I mean, if they paid him 50, 51, 52, 53, overall, it doesn't. Your reaction would be the same if they paid him 51 as opposed to 53, correct?
I mean, the issue is just like, can you put together a good enough team with him making this much money? And I can't help but notice that while they're paying him and Fred and Kittle, the offensive line got even cheaper. And we've talked about this for years on this show. Like, man, if you just give Brock Purdy a really good offensive line, like, he's more than good enough. And I think we've seen that. Like, yes, weapons and defense mattered, but look what an offensive line did for Jared Goff in Detroit. Look what an offensive line does, a good one, does for Jalen Hurts in Philly. It makes all the freaking difference. And it's disappointing that the 49ers would make such a big investment in this position for the first time in their franchise history, and not a corresponding investment in the offensive line. Instead they went defensive line, and that to me is dangerous, because if Brock Purdy gets injured week 1, I mean, it's kind of the organization's fault.
They're definitely thin at tackle. I mean, my whole thing on this would be like, okay, I think Brock can play, but I don't think he can do it by himself. I think he's kind of like a Jalen Hurts. I think if you gave him Hurts's equation of weapons and line and D, I think he would probably get the same out of it. So I don't have a problem paying him the $50 million, but I also can't say definitively, like, can you win with a quarterback making $53 million? Well, the Eagles can with Howie Roseman. Mm-hmm. So it can be done. Like, the idea that it can't be done, no, that's a fallacy. It can be done. It doesn't mean that the Niners can do it, but it can be done. It's just a matter of, is Lynch and Shanahan going to be good enough running the rest of their team and mistake-free enough to build up a good enough team for Brock to win with? Because he's not going to be able to do it by himself. But if you build him Philly's line and Philly's weapons and Philly's D, I'll take my chances. Can they do that?
I think before I say anything too definitive about my feelings on this contract, I really want to see the details, like the cap hits. How is it structured? Because with Jalen Hurts, like, he's making $51 million a year, but it's structured in a way where his cap hit last year was 13.5. It's nothing. This year it's 21.8. Next year it's 31.9. So it's kind of backloaded. What we're seeing for Brock, or the rumor is that it's front loaded. He gets $165 million cash in the first 3 years. But what does that mean for his cap number? Like, if his cap number in 2026 is $50 million, I don't like it. But if it's 20, then, like, absolutely their Super Bowl window is open. So we have to see that.
Well, I think we have some of that, because didn't it come out that his percentage of the cap at signing was 14%? His percentage of the cap in the first 3 years is 18%. So it's 18 point something percent of the cap in the first 3 years. And it's
I just don't know how to do the math to figure out, like, what is his cap?
What's his actual cap?
Because I think you have to know what his signing bonus is, and I'm not sure that's been reported yet. The Niners haven't even announced the deal yet. Is that weird to you? They haven't announced the deal. It's Monday. It would be a great day to announce it. They announced the kicker.
I wonder if they need to have a signature on that before they're going to, because these guys are they in the same spot? I mean, this deal, also includes a full no trade clause.
Yep.
What did you think of that?
It's just, I feel like they gave Brock Purdy everything he wanted. Maybe he wanted $55 million a year and they settled on $53 million a year, but for the first 3 years of the contract, it is $55 million a year. So when the Niners say, hey, no drama this offseason, that's kind of like a synonym for we rolled over. Forget the Parag Marathe tough negotiations of the past. Like, we just gave the players what they wanted. And maybe that's the right thing to do. I don't know. It's not my money.
Well, you know what? The question I would have is, did they get a full third year out? Can the 49ers get out of this in year 3, and at what price? And
right.
that probably is what the Niners got in return. It looks, you're right. It looks on this end right now, without knowing exactly what the Niners out is, like Brock got everything because he got a full no trade. Maybe they if there's something, it would be interesting if he got a full no trade for the 5. But there's outs that could make it a 3-year deal.
That's what I think. I have a feeling there's not going to be guaranteed money after the first 3 years, and it's essentially a 3-year, $165 million contract. And after that, it becomes a little bit more team friendly, which is kind of interesting. Like $55 million a year, but only for 3 years. It's an interesting middle ground. I don't think any team has done that for a quarterback yet. Maybe it's the right move. Still, 3 years is a long time.
7th in AAV is not offensive. Is it? I mean, it is if you don't want to pay him at all, but it's not if you're saying, is he worth Tua money? Is he worth Goff money? Is he, where does he sit in the hierarchy? They could have set new ground. They didn't. It's 7th in average annual value. It's 8th in total guarantees. So there's not like they set new records with this thing. I think overall, the only way you could be fully against this is if you don't believe that, or if you're really concerned that Brock is not a franchise quarterback and that they just paid a non-franchise quarterback kind of money and they're saddled with him for the foreseeable future, and you think that's the wrong thing. But
that's what I feel. And I think that's
fair. I mean, that's a fair stance.
Like, he's a very good quarterback.
But then my question then would be, like, let's just say he didn't exist. Or let's just say, he had the surgery and he came back. Let's just say last year he came back and he had no arm strength and he got bounced out of the league, and it was clear to everybody he couldn't go forward. So Brock Purdy's career ended in 2024. What would the Niners be doing at quarterback? What would be the best the 49ers could do at quarterback this year if Brock wasn't available to them?
See, to me, with a coach like Kyle, I mean, if you believe in him, one of the perks of having him is that you don't have to spend big on a quarterback. He's shown that he can get incredible production out of guys on rookie deals or backups. So Mac Jones fits, and then they could have drafted Shedeur Sanders in like round 5 and given him $900,000 a year, and he looks pretty good. I understand why he dropped, but he was right there. They passed on him a bunch of times. Just like it's not hard to find experienced quarterbacks who played a lot of college football and fit Kyle Shanahan's system and can do it for cheap, my opinion. And just because Trey couldn't do it doesn't mean that it's hard to find these guys, especially if the rest of the roster is loaded because you're not paying for the quarterback position. I thought that's what Kyle brought to the table.
I hear that too. I mean, you can build in other areas. Here's the question, though. Who would that be? I mean, if it's is it Kirk Cousins? Is it Aaron Rodgers?
It's Shedeur Sanders. I mean, there are guys every year that come out.
Do you really think, though, that the Vegas over-under on the Niners would not? Don't you think it would go down at least by a game or two if they went from Brock Purdy
Perception
to Shedeur
and reality are different. Like, the Niners were favored to win all 17 games last year, and they won 6. Like, just because the betting public is confident in the 49ers doesn't mean they're going to have a good year. I mean, I actually kind of like the idea of betting on Kyle if he is your coach. Like, we are one of the few teams in the league that doesn't have to enter this market because it's a tough market to enter in. Either you have a top 4 or 5 quarterback and it's worth it. Although look at the Bengals. The Bengals, you can't knock them for paying Joe Burrow. He's worth every penny. And they won 8 games last year. It's just hard to build a good team, a great team, when you're spending 19% of your cap on one player. No matter how good he is. It's hard. You got to be an incredible drafting team.
It's one of those things. It's like, if you have a top 5 guy, okay, let's just say for the sake of it, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Stafford.
Those guys.
Top 5 guy. And we could always debate that. But I mean, those are let's just say roughly the top. That's a no-brainer, right? Hey, you got your guy. But what if you're in that 6 to 12 range, which I would have, Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Purdy, Stroud, maybe Rodgers at this point, maybe a Drake May or a Herbert or a Wilson or a Nix, somewhere in that next tier. They're not in the top 5, but they're not crap either. They're top half of the league, but they're not top guys. That's where it's like, well, what do you do? Then it's a judgment call. Can you win a Super Bowl with Jaden Daniels? Yeah, I think I can. Can you win a Super Bowl with Hurts? You saw it last year. They did. But it's easy to say now. But like 2 years ago,
as a runner, he gives you like 100 first downs and like 15 touchdowns. I think he's an interesting case because he's more than just a quarterback. Like he's a dual threat. And Jaden Daniels might end up being a top 5 quarterback in 2 years. He might end up being worth the money.
How about Kyler? How about Stroud? Yeah. How about Drake May or Herbert or Nix?
I feel like the Cardinals are in purgatory.
I think Purdy's kind of in that category. I would say I don't think he's a top 5 guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 guy. But I also think in that next group, I might even take Stafford out and put Daniels in and say that's the top 5. Okay, but then in that next group that includes Murray and Hurts and Purdy and Stroud and May and Herbert, I think those guys can win a Super Bowl, but I think they're going to have 2/3 of the team around them. They're going to have great weapons and a killer D, or a great line and a killer weapons, or 2 out of the 3 between O-line, defense, and weaponry. If you got 2 out of the 3 of those in that second group, I think they can probably get it done. And I put Purdy in that group. And I don't know. I don't think it's like, I don't think Stroud can do it by himself. I definitely don't think like Hurts or May or Herbert or any of these guys can just be like, come aboard, I'm doing it. But I do think if you gave them a good enough team, those guys probably are good enough to win the whole thing. And I think Brock's in that group.
Yeah, but the problem with that group is it's hard to put a good enough team around quarterbacks in that group. Like Kyler, Tua, Trevor, those guys are good quarterbacks who are getting paid great money. And I think all of those teams are in purgatory. And maybe you could say like, well, those teams aren't as good as the Niners, and the Niners have a better coach and they have a better front office and they'll draft better and they'll develop better. And that could all be true. That could all be true, but it's hard. It's difficult. And what they had, like the formula they had 2 years ago seemed easy. It was like, we could draft well or not. We could throw these picks away. We have so much margin for error because we're not paying $50 million a year for a quarterback. We can sign all kind of B-level players who are important,
What do you think Purdy with this team this year is going to win game-wise? And what do you think if the Niners listened to you and said, you know what, Grant's right. Let's go with a quarterback and a rookie deal. We'll go with Mac in between, and we'll just make do. You'd have a better team, so that's hard to kind of speculate. But what do you think? If the Niners had Mac Jones and Shador at quarterback this year, how many games they win? What do you think they're going to win with Purdy?
Let me weasel out of this question real quick. Maybe they win more games with Purdy this year, but I don't think the Niners are winning the Super Bowl with Purdy. I don't think they're going to the NFC Championship game. I think this is a transition
ever, or
year.
just this year, you mean?
This year. This year. I think this is a transition year. So maybe they're better in the short term with Purdy, a game or 2 or 3, but ultimately not enough to win the Super Bowl. And I think next year they could be better because they'd be in year 2 with Shedeur Sanders or Mac Jones, and they will have actually spent money on like an offensive line. They could have signed Drew Dahlman. They could have traded for Joe Tooney. They could have made big moves like that if they weren't making such big moves with Brock Purdy.
Fred Warner got big money today too. Let's get to Fred. 3 years, $63 million, $56 million guaranteed. Makes him the highest paid linebacker in the league. Tied to the Niners through 2029. 4-time All-Pro. $21 million per, highest paid in the game. Has he already played his best ball, or do you think he can still get better?
I think he's right in his prime, and I think he's still got 1 or 2 or 3 first-team All-Pro seasons left in him. He wasn't necessarily his best last year. He played through a broken ankle for like 13 weeks, and before that, he looked like the best player. He was in like legitimate Defensive Player of the Year conversations. I think he's well worth the money. I mean, as great as George Kittle is, I think Warner's more worth the money. He's 3 years younger. He's missed one game in his entire career. He is absolutely a future Hall of Famer. So is George. I'm not trying to take anything away from George, but that's how much respect I have for Fred. I think this is a great deal. And even at $21 million a year, you could argue that it's a bargain. I mean, he's the quarterback of the defense. He shuts down the middle of the field, and he's great against the run.
The Niners' best defensive player is
Fred Warner. Absolutely.
Fred Warner.
He's the leader of the team.
Did you have to think about that, or did you?
No, I don't know why. It hit my brain late, but as soon as I actually understood the words that you were saying, I was like, oh, that's obviously Fred Warner. He's the best player on the team, in my opinion. I think he's the heart and soul. He's the conscience. He's the coach on the field. Every cliche you can name, he's it. And he's not the flashiest guy. He doesn't call a ton of attention to himself like George does. And George does it in a great way. He's like the face of the team. But this guy's like the backbone of the team.
Does he miss Greenlaw this year, or does Nick Martin step in and they don't miss Greenlaw?
I don't know if Greenlaw exists anymore. I'm sorry, Dre. He had that great half against the Rams, but I wonder if he's going to keep getting injured at this point. So D. Winters has a chance. Nick Martin has a chance. I think by the end of the year, it's going to be a really good linebacker crew. I don't really have questions when it comes to Robert Saleh drafting and developing that spot. He's good at it.
Rank Brent Jones, 33rd inductee to the 49er Hall of Fame, next to George Kittle and Vernon Davis. Man. Who's one, who's two, who's three?
Okay, so I think it's Kittle, Vernon, Brent, but people don't understand how good Brent Jones was. He was great. Now, he wasn't ever like the man in the offense the way that Kittle and Vernon Davis were at times. Like, there was always Jerry Rice there, and he was kind of a secondary option, but just phenomenal hands, great route runner, tremendous all-around tight end, one of the best of his era. I mean, I was really young from Brent Jones. I can tell you a Brent Jones story, but what would you tell about the Brent Jones, the player?
Oh, I mean, there was a game, Grant, like towards the end of his career where it was Niners New York Giants on just a 1:00 start at Candlestick, and the New York Giants got like 9 crushing shots in on Brent Jones. I don't think I've ever seen a player hit so hard in a game before. I asked him about it, and I'm like, "You remember that game?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that game." So I just remember Brent Jones, and also in the Super Bowl 29, Steve Young got Brent Jones ISO'd on Junior Seau on the sideline and threw him kind of a sideline fade, and he laid out and beat Junior Seau. When you're beating Junior in the Super Bowl for a major 25-yard grab or something for a first down, that was big. Yeah, Brent Jones, I would say you're right. It's Kittle, Vernon, then Brent. But I'll say this: if it was my life was depending on it, I would take Brent Jones over Vernon. I think he had better hands.
Did he not? Am I remembering? This was a long time ago. Am I remembering this wrong? He didn't use gloves, right?
No gloves. No gloves for Brent. And
Love that.
He played at Santa Clara, right? Got drafted, I think, by the Steelers. And they cut him as an undrafted guy. Maybe he was undrafted with the Steelers, and they cut him, and the Niners picked him up. And, he just one of those guys, he just got better and better and better.
Fifth round pick.
And was he a 5th round pick?
5th round pick, but they cut him.
Wow. Yeah, they cut him. And he had an injury, I think, too. And the 49ers grabbed him. And, the combination of it's kind of like what worked for the Niners back then is still kind of what they look for. It's like they used to love D-line. They still love D-line. They used to love O-linemen that nobody else loved. They still love O-linemen that nobody else loves. And they used to sometimes go with these kind of underwhelming, guys at certain spots. And then they were really smart, and they got better and better and better. And that was Brent. He's just a smart guy who got better and better and better.
Okay, here's my Brent Jones story. So I'm 6 years old when they win the Super Bowl. 1995. And I was aware of the Niners. My dad covered them. But 6 years old, that's like really when I started watching them every week. And they won the Super Bowl, and I'm a huge fan. And my dad is like, "Oh, you like the Niners? Well, I could introduce you to Steve Young." I'm like, okay. So let's go. So we go to the facility. This is like 1995. I think I'm 7. I'm in first or second grade. I meet Steve Young. I'm so freaking starstruck. He signs my little Sports Illustrated for Kids card. He's like, would you like me to find Jerry Rice and have him give you an autograph? I'm like, yes, please. Thank you. I know who he is. So he's walking all around trying to find Jerry Rice. Brett Jones walks in, and this is like the front of the facility in Santa Clara. We don't really go there very much anymore, but you know where that is, right?
Yeah,
where, like,
yeah. Where the
personnel
trophies
goes.
used to
He's
be.
walking in and he's like, Lowell, what's up? And my dad's like, well, I'm introducing my son to Steve and Jerry. And Brent's like, what, am I not famous enough? I can't sign his Sports Illustrated for Kid card. So he's like, come on. So he was like the most down-to-earth cool guy. And yeah, I've been like, I was such a huge 49ers fan at that point in my life. I mean, those were like my idols. I was like, Dad, you're pretty cool and all, but you're not Brent Jones. You're not Steve Young. Sorry.
Seriously. Brett Jones he is a really cool guy to talk to. I've also done some, in Oakland and Berkeley and San Francisco. There's a program grant that we were part of called TLC for Kids. And it was like a field renovation thing that O.C. Jones and Sons was a construction management firm took on. So like they would go into the inner city, San Francisco, Oakland, Richmond, wherever, find a field that was totally beat up, dig it up, resod it, redo the backstop, all at zero cost to these, municipalities. And Brent Jones was a big part of that. I did some of the speaking on that part to introduce all these guys, but getting to know Brent through that thing a little bit. I mean, he's just a very charitable guy, cares a lot about the community that, he spent his whole career in, and just, real solid guy, and just a real cool guy to have a few beers with and chop it up. And, he's just good enough player that it was like, man, this guy was big time, but just an every man kind of a guy to be relatable, and just a very, very cool guy. Very cool.
If you're young and it's like you don't remember him, he was on the same team as Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Roger Craig, Tom Rathman. He was one of the 5 eligible receivers. And I mean, he was as dangerous as any of them, barring Jerry Rice. I mean, he was that great.
In a lot of ways, it was a little bit like Kittle as a receiver. I mean, Kittle is obviously a strong inline blocker. Brent is not quite as big or as strong, as it doesn't move people on the line of scrimmage like George did. But as far as just a sticky-handed receiver that's going to come away with, plays and come down with the ball, and that's him. And also, we saw it with some of the other guys who've struggled tight end-wise in this offense. You got to be smart to play tight end in the West Coast offense, and it's a really underrated aspect of the game. That's why this kid Pline is such an exciting prospect, because he's like a mechanical engineering major and he's a former basketball player. So they think, oh yeah, this guy's going to be good. So we'll see. But
I love tight ends who are former basketball players.
I do too.
I love offensive tackles who are former tight ends.
Yes. Antonio Gates, Julius Thomas. There's been some good ones.
Jimmy Graham?
I mean, what's that? Jimmy Graham? That's right. Jimmy Graham. Forgot about Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham. Yep. Jimmy Graham was Tony Gonzalez. Yeah, Tony Gonzalez, the Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Niners signed Greg Joseph. And I saw that Kawakami came out with this very un-Tim Kawakami column. It's like May 10th, and he's like writing Greg Joseph better beat out Jake Moody, and just seems so beneath Tim. Seems like something I could get fired up about. Maybe you could get fired up about. But not necessarily Tim and May. But Tim's like, hey, man, Jake Moody's got to go. I will say this. When I was a little kid and there was boxing, my dad used to let me watch Muhammad Ali. You didn't just beat Muhammad Ali if you fought him straight up. You had to beat. In those days, if you were going to win in boxing and beat the champ, you had to beat the champ. And anything that was close to 50-50 or a draw went in the champ's favor. In this particular matchup, Grant, I think it's got to go the other way. If it's a 50-50 thing, the tie base goes to the veteran here. If Moody and Greg Joseph kick to a standstill this summer, give it to Joseph. They're not going to, but
I'm not sure. I guess I agree with you. I agree in the sense that who is
I've
Greg
lost
Joseph?
faith in Moody, I guess.
No. Who is Greg Joseph? He was on 3 teams last year. It seems to me that the Niners went out and got a kicker that Moody's supposed to beat out. Come on, man. It's Greg Joseph, dude. He got cut 3 times last year. You can beat him out, right?
Great. You were there for when we talked to Brant Boyer. It's clear.
Yeah.
I would swear to you that Brant Boyer was hired with the understanding that Jake Moody will be given any and all opportunities to make this team. He was not brought in to vanquish Jake Moody.
He was brought in to fix Jake Moody.
Right.
And the problem with that is like, okay, you bring in Greg Joseph, you have a competition, you promise Jake Moody nothing. Great. In practice, Jake Moody's going to look great. In preseason, Jake Moody's going to look great. He could really win this competition, be flawless, and then you get to week 1 and there's a kick with the game on the line. Are you confident in him? Is he confident in him? That's the problem. I mean, it's a mental thing. They can say it's his ankle. It's a mental thing, and I feel like the whole team's probably like tightening up a little bit when they look at him like, oh God, come on, Jake.
I don't know what to say about it. It's like, I mean, I've interviewed him, and I'm always under the look for like, is he squirrely? Is he nervous? Is he, and he's not. He's not squirrely. He's not nervous. He's pretty calm. He's pretty, you know what I mean? Doesn't he comes across as calm and pretty confident, pretty grounded, not too emotional, but he's missed right. He's missed left. He's had multiple years of inconsistency. I don't know, man. It's like, unless he's just
I don't read him the same
absolutely
way.
money.
I don't read him the same way. I read him as a guy who's got a lot of anxiety and self-doubt right now. Okay. He's got this look in his face like, well, how did this get so hard? I used to be so good at this. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I don't get it. That it's a little bit of like, I mean, if you play baseball or golf, like when you get the yips and all of a sudden you can't hit it anymore. It's like, I used to be able to do this. Now I'm just shanking everything. I don't know. And it's just like that fear comes in like, man, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I can do that. That's a little bit what I see, but maybe I'm projecting because I was shanking it at Monarch yesterday.
Well, no, I mean, and as you said, before, I mean, this guy last year played for the Giants, the Commanders, the Jets. I mean, and he's not connecting from deep either. It's not like Joseph is making a bunch of field goals beyond 50. He's not. But they did sign him today, and they did cut Alex Barrett, who just seems to be kind of the guy who always
bring him back. He's coming back.
Yeah,
he'll play for Bitcoin, man.
Something tells me Alex Barrett probably is living in a hotel nearby, and that he'll be back. Yeah. That's almost a guarantee. It seems like he's never too far away. Okay, here's one that I thought was interesting today. Are the Niners done as far as adding to this team? The team that we see right now, is it 100% done, or do you think there is anything to add? And I bring that up because I was reading an article yesterday that a buddy of mine who's a Jets fan sent me because it referenced the Niners. And it's a story about how in Jets OTAs, Aaron Glenn and their new first-year general manager have been loving this Arian Smith, this rookie wide receiver that they drafted or that they signed after the draft from Georgia. And this guy and the Locked On Jets people are saying that there's a chance that the Jets may cut Malachi Corley or trade him this summer for nothing because they've got Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, they signed Josh Reynolds, they love Tyler Smith, and now they love this kid Arian Smith, and they've got a couple other guys in addition to that. I bring this up, Grant, because Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, who, by the way, today went to the Eagles, they didn't just draft Malachi Corley 65th in last year's draft. They traded up to get him. And he is a Debo-like player, and the Niners obviously don't have Debo. They don't have a lot of money, but this guy is in year 2 of a rookie contract, that he signed originally for whatever, 4 years, $6 million, or whatever it is. It's not a lot of money. But now they're saying Arian Smith is so good that Corley's going to be the odd man out with the Jets. He only was targeted 6 times last year. He caught 3 balls for 16 yards. He tried to spike the ball at the 1, and it didn't go over. He thought he was in the end zone. He wasn't in the end zone. It cost him a touchdown. He kind of fell out of favor. Now they've got all these other guys. What do you think? Are you confident in the receiving crew, or would Robert Saleh, who traded up a year ago for Malachi Corley thinking he's Debo, do you think if they could get him this summer, he would?
Here's the only way. I mean, would you trade Jacob Cowing for Malachi Corley straight up?
I might. Yeah, I might. Now that I've got Jordan Watkins, I might. Just because
then I'd do that. I'd
yeah.
do that. Yeah. Jacob Cowan needs a fresh start. He's got no opportunity here. Maybe Malachi Corley could get on the field, but I wouldn't trade a pick for him. Maybe a player straight up.
I mean, we saw that with A.J. Jenkins and Jonathan Baldwin. Remember that when Jenkins was a bust and Baldwin was a bust? Yeah. So, I mean, bust receiver,
player, but
it didn't work out. It didn't work out for either player. But, who's to say it couldn't work out? I'll say this. I kind of think if you said to me, do the Niners have a shot this year? Well, okay, I thought the draft was pretty good. I don't know if it's great, but I think it's pretty good. I think that they probably are going to win 10-plus games and maybe win a playoff game, but I think they're probably also a step beneath the top teams in the league. That's kind of how I see them. How do you see them post-draft?
Here's how I see him. Look, I think what's interesting about him is they've done everything. You signed Kittle, you signed Warner, you signed Purdy. Great. The rookies will be good or they won't. All that stuff is secondary to me to two people. To me, this season still comes down to two people, McCaffrey and Trent. If those two guys play most of the season and they play it at a high level, then the Niners almost certainly will win a ton of games and go deep in the playoffs. But if they're in and out, ineffective, injured, I think this year will look a lot like last year. And I think that's kind of what's tough about this team. I mean, they can do everything right. You can bring back Salah, you can draft well, but you're still very much at the mercy of those two guys. It's a little bit like the Warriors. I mean, they're very much at the mercy of Steph. When he's out there, he's the system. They're great. When he's not, they can't replace that. I mean, Jimmy's not a 1. Draymond's not a 2. And I think Christian's the system on offense. Trent Williams is the offensive line. Without those two guys, they have big problems.
Let's do some quick hitters before we get out of here. Is the Niner O-line, in your mind, good enough to keep Brock Purdy healthy? What do you think of what they did do to the offensive line with the tackles and the guards, and what's your read on Humphreys backing out?
That was bizarre. I'm not sure that it is good enough. Dominic Pooney, hell of a player. Colton McKivitz, good enough. Jake Brendel, not sure that he's good enough. Ben Barch, not sure that he's good enough. Trent Williams, of course. But then how many games is he going to miss, and who's filling in for him? Andre Dillard? I think Jalen Moore is better than him. So are they going to have games where their offensive line is like Dillard and Barch and Brendel? Like, that's not good enough. And why would you want to put such an important player behind such a patchwork offensive line? That's the one thing that doesn't really match up. If you think Brock Purdy's an elite franchise quarterback, fine, you might be right, but you have to build the rest of the roster accordingly. And that means offensive line matters. When you signed freaking Jimmy, you got Weston Richburg and McGlinchey because offensive line mattered. This is so to your question, are they done? They better not be done. They could bring in another offensive lineman. They could get DJ Humphreys. Why do you think he backed out?
You know what? I think that's one of two reasons. Either, his agent got prorogued, and there's all kinds of stipulations in there that he didn't realize and didn't, when he saw the final copy of the deal, was like, hell no, man. There's like 19 different ways for the Niners to get out of this. Or maybe he doesn't like the fact that he now has to compete with Dillard and Petit Frere to be that third tackle, and maybe he was promised that he was going to be the third tackle against some nominal rookie. So I think it's probably one of those two things. If I had to say one or the other, I'd guess it's probably contract language that was, protecting the Niners and not necessarily in Humphrey's favor. That would be my guess.
There's one more thing I want to see, and then we'll see this at OTAs. And this is just sort of my sense as a journalist. I think you probably have the same sense. You kind of want to believe what you see and not necessarily what you're told. And what we've been told with Trent is that everything's great. Trent Williams, he's back. He wants to play. Everything's fine. He was at OTAs. I haven't seen him, though. I haven't seen him with my two eyes. He hasn't said a word. He used to be talking to the media all the time. And I know he's gone through some serious stuff in his life. So I give him all that. I just want to see it for myself. And that's the last thing to check off with this team. Trent Williams actually back. And we're going to see that in about a week from tomorrow if he's there.
Yeah. I'll say this about the O-line. It would be like if a buddy of mine told me, man, I just bought a house in Pack Heights. It's sweet, man. I just spent $5.5 million on a really sweet mansion in Pack Heights. But guess what, bro? Because I spent $5.5 million, I can't go with locks on the front door for like the first 2 years.
Insurance.
I can't have locks. I got to go lockless for the first 2 years. I just can't afford the locks. And then that's kind of like the Niners. It's like, hey, they got Purdy deal done, but they're going to have to go for at least the one more year with just kind of patchwork line because they've missed on Drake Jackson and they missed on Kinlaw and they missed on Solly and they missed on this guy and they missed on that guy. So they've had to overdraft their D line to cover their missed picks, and it's made them abuse their O line. They should have well by now had stocked that O line with 2 or 3 extra guys, but they haven't because they keep failing with their D line picks. And if you can never have enough D linemen and D line always takes priority over O line, and you keep missing on the D line, well, guess what? Eventually your O line's going to suck. You know,
and this is what eventually could push Kyle Shanahan out. If Brock Purdy doesn't necessarily live up to the contract, but because he's getting hit a lot and the offensive line isn't good, well, then you'll have to look at Kyle Shanahan's philosophy. I mean, that's just how he builds his team. He's never going to he's never going to aspire to assemble a dominant offensive line. He wants good or good enough. And maybe eventually the Niners say, you know what, for Brock to have his best chance to live up to this contract, we need a coach who values the offensive line. Like, maybe Ben Johnson is worse than Kyle Shanahan. He has a lot to prove, but you saw his philosophy. He became the Bears head coach. First thing he did, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson. First thing. Like, that's not the last. With Kyle, it's the last thing, if he ever gets to it.
Makes you kind of wonder, too, about the internal workings of things, too. It's like, does Chris Forster have job security for days because he's willing to not take high picks? Does Chris Kasarik have pressure dialed up on him because he's got 3 high picks all drafted on his line? You know, I don't know. I'm not sure what the answers are there.
I feel like Kasarik has job security because Kyle wants the wide 9 and he's the wide 9 guy. So who's going to replace him? Yeah.
But don't you feel, I feel like Forster has job security because he's willing to make do with whatever scraps he can get, you know, as far as draft picks. All right, what are you most excited about this Niner team on May the 19th? What are you most concerned about on May 19th?
I'm so excited about their defense. It may not be dominant right away, starting 5 rookies. It could struggle week 1 in Seattle, but with Robert Saleh coaching it, I think he probably handpicked most of these rookies. I can't wait to see the vision. I can't wait to see how he's changed and evolved from 4 years ago. And I can't wait to see how much it can improve over 18 weeks. Because by December, this defense could be, if everything goes according to plan, extremely fast and violent and, good at 3 levels. So that's going to be fun to watch Robert Saleh come back and not only clean up the defense, but reshape it in his image. And then on offense, I'm just concerned about the whole thing. Like, can you keep Brock Purdy upright? How many games can Trent Williams play? How many games can Christian McCaffrey play? When is Brandon Ayuk coming back? Is Juwan Jennings really a wide receiver 1 in the meantime? Is George Kittle going to continue to be the guy who plays 14 or 15 games a year? Or is this the year that the injury he inevitably is going to get knocks him out for half the season? There's so many questions with the Niners offense. But when it's healthy, it should be elite.
My concern is right in the middle of the field, or my excitement and concerns right in the middle of the field. My excitement, CJ West, just nasty, awesome. I think he's going to be fantastic. I don't think there's any way he's not really, really good. Biggest concern right there across the line of scrimmage, Jake Brendel. I'm concerned. I'm concerned because, he doesn't seem to be all that effective according to unbiased observers, and the people who are in charge of his playing time are very biased, and they love him, and that's a concern as well. So
Larry,
Brendel's my concern.
Training camp, CJ West, Jake Brendel.
CJ West, Jake Brendel. I think something tells me CJ West is going to eat Jake Brendel. He's going to absolutely eat Jake Brendel. All right, best move of the offseason, worst move.
Best move of the offseason, it was getting back Saleh. That's just huge. he's almost like a co-head coach. Nick Sorensen should never have been the defensive coordinator. And when the Niners have been at their best, they've been a defensive-driven team with an excellent complementary offense. So bringing him back, extending Fred Warner was great too, but it's not like that was in danger of not happening. And I also liked signing Mac Jones. I like when Kyle brings in cheaper quarterbacks who fit his system because there's so much freaking upside there. so much. I do think he could probably start for this team if the team were healthy and rolling.
The best move of the offseason, I would say I like the Mac Jones pickup too, because I really believe that even though, not that Brock Purdy's lazy, I'm not trying to make it seem like Brock Purdy's lazy, but he's a competitor and he didn't have anybody to compete with last year. And there's a big difference between those guys are pros and this guy can take your job. And even though he's got the money, and the money means that it's going to take tons for anybody to ever not play Brock Purdy, but just having Mac Jones there, I think makes Brock Purdy better. And that's to me, that's the best move of the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the worst move of the offseason,
yeah, I didn't give one.
The worst move of the offseason by far, is the 49ers carrying this penny pinching, budget conscious, belt tightening approach into the undrafted free agent market, which was easily that was not wise. There's definitely, the Eagles, for example, already have a great line. And yet Holland Pierce, who's like 6'8", 340 pounds, has been a revelation in Eagles OTAs, and they think he's going to be a future starter. They signed him as an undrafted free agent. The Rams cited, the Eagles did, and the Rams signed Lily Lampkin, who's an awesome center interior guy, as an undrafted free agent. And the Niners tried to spend I think they were 27th in the NFL in money spent in the undrafted market. And it's easily the most fruitful market. It's a market they've dominated in the past. They should have signed an additional 4 or 5 guys. It would have made a profound difference. They could have, if they had found a Holland Pierce type offensive tackle for the future in the undrafted market and kept him from Philly, that in and of itself would have been worth all the money they spent. So to me, going cheap in the undrafted market was nonsense, short-sighted, and it's going to be costly.
For me, I didn't answer this one. For me, I explained why I'm not wild about the Brock Purdy extension. And it's not that I'm like, this is a huge, well, I did say it's a mistake. I don't know. I have misgivings, and it makes me,
you wouldn't have done it,
uneasy. But the combination of giving all that money to Brock and going cheaper on the offensive line, that combination to me is the worst move of the offseason, because you're just asking for your huge investment to get messed up. And again, Brock's tough, but I think the one thing he has in common with Tua is with Tua, he fits the system, he produces, but he's had these concussions. And it's oh man, that's scary. I don't necessarily want to invest in a quarterback who could be, done at any time. Man, Brock's had 3 injuries to his throwing arm. It's scary. So you want to protect him, man. You want to protect him at all costs, and I feel like the Niners aren't doing a good job of that.
Especially since we kind of know he's the guy that's going to hang in against the rush, take the hit, and run, and not slide. He's a guy that's going to put himself in harm's way as a competitor, so you need to do a great job of building that fortress. And he's only going to have success if they build this wall around him. If they don't build a wall around him, he's not going to have success. So I think that it's a risk. They had to pay Brock because of the schedule. They had to deal with their D-line because they keep screwing up their D-line. But unfortunately, the offensive line keeps paying for it, and ultimately Brock may wind up paying for it. Last one, over-under on the Niners. The NFL season over-under right now, I'm looking at it, is 10.5 wins. 10.5 wins is the over-under for the 49ers. Just so you know, if you want to bet them over, you get plus 110. And under is minus 130.
Yeah, this is scary to actually put money down either way. I'm trying to think, what would I wager here? It's an easy schedule. So to say less is scary. But to me, what I said earlier is take the schedule out of it. Take the rookies and everyone out of it. My projection comes down to my feelings about Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey. And you have to make some type of guess as to how much they're going to play next year. And it sucks to try to project injuries because it just feels gross, but still it's sports. They're older players with a track record. And do I feel more comfortable putting money down on them being 2023 versions of themselves or 2024 versions of themselves? I would put my money on the 2024. So I think there's a real chance this team is on the under simply because of injuries yet again. And, the rookies on defense, if they don't grow up quickly enough.
It's such a bad schedule. Such a bad schedule.
Yeah.
And they could be unimpressive in victory several times this year. I could see that happening. Because I went through the win loss, and I got them down at 11-6, and that was being super negative. I actually personally think they got a great shot at 12-5, so I'll go over. But it's not really about what I think of their team as much as what I think of their schedule. All right, let's hit these supers here. We go. Oh, actually, before we hit the supers, let's do Prize Picks.
Hell yeah.
We got Prize Picks is a proud sponsor of the Cohn Zone. Do your read if you need to, but tell people what we're wagering on here. And
okay, so it's just Eastern Conference Finals. We got some NBA action Wednesday night. Knicks, Pacers, and anyone like about my age or older. I mean, this is an old school matchup. This is Reggie Miller and John Starks. This is cool. I kind of like that it's not Celtics Lakers again. This is some cooler teams. So Tyrese Halliburton, one of the up and coming players in the league, 18 points. What do you think? More or less?
I like more. I like Halliburton's going to rise to the occasion as this thing goes on. I like him a lot.
About Jalen Brunson, 28.5 for him. 28.5 is a lot.
I'm going to say under. I'll go less.
Less.
Yes.
Karl Anthony Towns, 22.5 points. More or less?
And this is game one. I'm going to say less.
Less. Okay. I like your conviction on these ones. Julius Randle, 19.5 points. Game one. He's been on fire.
Julius Randle has been absolutely in fuego, but that has a lot to do with the fact that the Warriors are a donut team that has nothing. And this team is bigger, so I'm going to say less.
Okay. That's a savage.
Because that number is a little high because he was so good in the Warriors series.
Fair enough. Let's do a couple from the Western Conference Finals, which starts Tuesday. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31.5 points, more or less.
I'm going to say less. It's a lot, man. I'll say
usually when I do these with other content creators, it's always a bunch of mores, but Larry
less. Well, I'll say this: less. These things know it's like the smarter people bet unders than bet overs, and the same thing with this. I think it always is a little bit on the high side.
How about last one? Anthony Edwards, less or more on 27 points.
I think this is going to be the statement game. I think Anthony Edwards is going to come out with like 35. If you look at those numbers in the first round, he's starting to get it going later. 36, 30. I think he hits the ground running. I think he's got a real rivalry with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I think he's going to come out and have a big, maybe even a 40-point game.
All right, well, check them out. These are really Krueger's picks for Game 1 of Eastern Conference, Western Conference Finals. Halliburton, Brunson, Cat, Randall, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Anthony Edwards. Drink it in with your eyes. Download the app. Use promo code Cohn. Win 50 when you play $5 instantly. All right, boom. Thank you.
Awesome. By the way, really, really good. Watching the Knicks in the conference finals is really cool. Getting to see their fans for how passionate they are. I mean, the New York fans. Now, I gotta think Lowell was a Knick fan as a kid.
Big time Knick fan, back in the Willis Reed days.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. So is he digging this or not really? Or is he not into hoops?
He's gotten into it yet, but I'm going to throw it on a little later, and we'll see if he starts watching.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right, let's hit some supers. Sorry to keep these to the end. Ruben Bocanegra. Do social media talk about the guys that left were injured? Wait. Do social media talk about the guys that left were injured a lot? Don't want to talk about? Next topic social media should discuss, to be honest. Are you getting that one?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is like people on social media are making a big deal about all the players the Niners lost this offseason, but most of them were hurt last year anyway. I think that's what he's trying to say. I agree.
Who do you think is the biggest loss? Like I think Greenlaw is the biggest loss as a player, but he's not the biggest loss from last year because he really didn't do much last year. Mooney would be a big loss, but then he had such a down year last year. based on just last year, what do you who's the guy that they're going to miss that left? Is there anybody?
Got two answers. One, I think they're going to miss Talanoa Hufanga. He's 25 years old. He had some injuries. Mustafa's hurt. Jair Brown ain't it. I don't think Jason Pinnock's it either. I think they're going to miss him. They were always better when he was on the field, regardless of his weaknesses. And then Aaron Banks, like, I'm not saying they should have gave him $20 million a year, but I think they're going to miss him a little bit. He's steady. He's solid. And I think he's better than whoever they're going to trot out at left guard this year.
You know, it's funny, too. I really liked Aaron Banks. There was some games last year where he just got out-quicked. That Green Bay game, Carl Brooks in the second half of that Green Bay game just beat him to the spot repeatedly. And I really liked Aaron Banks.
Strange.
And yet Green Bay signed him. Yeah, that was that. I thought that was very strange because I thought that was his worst game.
Yeah, but you saw him.
And Carl Brooks is not their starter. Carl Brooks was their backup, and their backup abused him, and yet they still paid him. It kind of shows that, you know, when you have a good, you know, they're out there in the middle of the country, they probably had a good grade on them coming out of Notre Dame, and they probably, you know what I mean? True. Okay, here we go. We got Foot. Foot says should have let him play should have let him play out his contract. If he sucks, you dodge a bullet. If he balls out, what does it matter? If you have to pay him already, you got a quarterback. Clearly the 49ers I mean, it's like anything else. Sirius XM is not going to play super hardball with Stern. They're not. If you're the biggest employee in the building, they're not going to play hardball with you. They're going to try to kowtow to you. Brock Purdy, once they decided that Brock Purdy was their guy, they were going to kowtow to him. I mean, they're not. Yeah, you're right. They didn't grind him. They could have grinded him. They didn't want to. They wanted to send a message. You're our guy. Ruben
and they wanted to send a message to Brock, and I think they want to send the message to Kyle. Like, this is our guy. Make it work. We've heard Kyle and John say multiple times, this is the last quarterback we want to work with. Or it's the last quarterback you're going to work with. And you heard that from your owners. I wonder.
Yeah. I think it would have been probably more true if they said, hey, guys, this is the last quarterback that we get to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's probably the truth.
Because we're on like sixth life. You know, they've already gone through a bunch of these, and a lot of coaches don't get these many second opportunities.
Well, I mean, we're not, because we're nice guys, we're not belaboring this, but who's the biggest winner of the Brock Purdy contract? John freaking Lynch and Kyle freaking Shanahan, right? I mean, come on. Those guys would not be here without Brock Purdy. I mean, you can't miss. I mean, Joe Douglas is a pretty accomplished GM. He got fired. He's in Philly today. I'm not saying they wouldn't be working. They would both be working and be doing just fine. They just wouldn't be probably working here.
No.
Yeah. Ruben Bocanegra says trenches always will win you the championship with mid everywhere else. You know what? You got to be good, and you got to be good on both sides of the line of scrimmage. There's no question. But the guys who touch the ball also matter. Let's not forget that the guys who touched the ball for Philly were pretty good. Mm-hmm. Joseph Ernberg, Brock Purdy will never have a good enough team around him. Okay.
See if the Niners can do it.
Let's see. Lamont 757. Why do I feel history repeats and Jimmy 2.0 Purdy gets hurt this year and here comes Mac and Cheese? The Raiders will be better than the 49ers this year. Oh God, don't say that. Don't say that.
It's a lot of negativity to put out there. Yikes.
That's a lot. Roger Sellers. Any chance they bring in another safety? Love the content, fellas. Anyone watching, remember to smash that like button. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah. Julian Blackman.
Julian Blackman. I mean, isn't Quandre Diggs out there? There's guys out there. I have a feeling that the 49ers are going to see what they got in Marcus Siegel. I will say this. I watched the Shrine game again because I saw Marcus Siegel was in it, and he had a monster hit in that game. I mean, this guy had a hit on the sidelines where it was like Dante Whitner kind of a hit, and he's a 4-3 guy with speed who can cover. So let's see what Marquise Siegel looks like this summer. But I definitely think safety is on the short list of.
What about Tashawn Gibson?
You know, to me, Jair Brown is Tashawn Gibson.
Yeah.
They both are high percentage interceptors, not great coverage guys.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean. And
I'll say this: hawks without a ton of range. But
what did you make of Jair's thing the other day? Did you see what Jair put out?
No,
Jair's like, he's like, I'm balling out this year, or I forget exactly, but it was something along the lines of like, fans get ready. I'm getting ready to take off.
He better. He was pretty bad last year.
He was bad last
Maybe
year.
he was just one of those sophomore slumps. Maybe he understands what it takes to be a pro now. I don't know.
I'll say this. I like that kid. I really do. I think he's tough. I think he's smart. But you're right. He's got to play better. Shyla Q. Worst move is keeping Moody and an old O-line. Jesus. Joseph Ernberg, CMC, best running back again, and we win the Super Bowl 35-17 against the Bills. I will say this. I got a buddy of mine who lives in Cincinnati, and he's like, Krug, let me just tell you, you guys got something major in Corey Kiner. So we'll see.
That's cool.
I don't. It's always good to hear. It's always good to hear. All right, Grant, what do you got cooking the rest of the day, man? Are you done for the day? When do you stream next? Going with Pops tomorrow morning? What's the rundown?
If they extend Juwan Jennings tonight, then I'm streaming again. But otherwise, okay. I'll stream my Pops in the morning. And you never know. You think Juwan Jennings is going to get an extension? Is he next? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No, sorry, Juwan. Great player, but this is probably the last year with the Niners.
I would say if he gets an extension, it will just be like when the contract's done. It won't be he will not be given a preemptive. There will not be a preemptive strike deal with Juwan.
He's going to get some money.
He deserves it. He deserves it, man.
Hell yeah.
He deserves it, man. I mean, come on. I mean, also let's say this too. You and I cover football for a living. We talk to the players all the time. There aren't too many locker rooms where if you walk around the room and say, hey, man, who's the toughest guy in here? People say the wide receiver. But I swear to you, Juwan Jennings is considered one of the toughest guys in that room. It's not just like, no, he absolutely is.
He's very much like the alpha in the room too, like much more than Debo and Ayuk ever were. He's the leader.
He's the leader. Yeah, he's absolutely the leader. And you can tell by the way he carries himself. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks to our sponsors. The links are in the description below. Hit like and subscribe on both channels before you get out of here. Thanks to Grant. Thanks to all of you. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.